What if the real reason your projects spiral into chaos isn't just bad luck or even bad management, but a fundamental law of the universe itself? Today, we're going to talk about a hidden force that is silently working against every single company, project, and team. It's called organizational entropy. Think about it. You kick off a project, right? The rules are clear, the process is streamlined, but then, a few months later, it's just this tangled mess of confusion and delays. If you've ever felt that frustration, trust me, you are not alone. And as it turns out, there's a scientific reason for it. So let's break it down. To really understand the chaos that happens in our offices, we first need to zoom out, way out, and start with a basic law of the universe. So in physics, there's this concept called entropy, and it's basically just a fancy word for disorder or randomness. The second law of thermodynamics says that in any closed system, this disorder always increases. Just think about your bedroom. It doesn't magically stay clean, does it? Left to its own devices, it gets messy. You have to actively put in energy to tidy it up. That's entropy in action. Okay, so what happens when we take that exact same idea and apply it to a company? What if our organizations also naturally drift towards chaos unless we're actively fighting against it? And that thought experiment brings us right to the core idea of what we're talking about today, organizational entropy. So what is it really? Well, organizational entropy is just the natural decline of a company into disorder. And this is key. It's not about lazy people or incompetent managers. It's a systemic force, almost like organizational gravity. Without constant, focused energy to counteract it, confusion and inefficiency, well, they become the default setting. Take a look at this. On the left, you see a low entropy organization. See how it's got a clear structure, clean reporting lines? It makes sense. Now look at the right. That is a high entropy organization. It's a tangled mess, right? It's really hard to tell who's responsible for what, or even how information is supposed to flow. And this isn't just a diagram on a slide. This is our day-to-day reality. In that low entropy state, roles are clear, information flows smoothly, and objectives are aligned. But in a high entropy state, oh man, it is a constant battle. You've got blurred boundaries, constant communication breakdowns, and simple tasks suddenly become these bizarrely complicated workflows. Does any of that sound familiar? Now, this drift towards chaos isn't just annoying. It is incredibly expensive. So let's go through the symptoms so you can start to spot them in your own workplace. These right here are the red flags. Your processes become these bureaucratic nightmares. Information just gets lost in the shuffle. Decisions that should take an hour take a week. Innovation, that dies because nobody has the energy for new ideas when they're just trying to survive the day. And as that frustration builds, engagement plummets, and your company culture just starts to erode. And if you just let entropy run its course, it doesn't just make things a little less efficient. It can grind all the work to a complete and total halt, usually in one of two ways. On one hand, you get what's called paralysis through politeness. This is where no one feels empowered to actually make a call because they're afraid of stepping on somebody else's turf. Or you get the opposite, chaos through collision, where everybody grabs for the steering wheel at the exact same time and yanks it in different directions. Either way, the car isn't moving forward. The author Max Dupree just put it perfectly. He said a high entropy environment is one where problem makers outnumber problem solvers. And that's it, right? It's that tipping point where the organization itself creates more chaos than value, and all of your best energy is spent just trying to manage the internal mess. So that's the problem. It's a big one. But remember the second law of thermodynamics? Entropy increases unless it's acted upon by an opposing force. Well, in an organization, that opposing force is us. It's intentional leadership and deliberate design. So let's talk about how to fight back. Luckily, the solution isn't some super complex formula. It really just boils down to two powerful steps. First, you have to clearly define how your teams are supposed to work together. And second, you have to find ways to anchor those definitions into your company's actual day-to-day life. All right, step one, define how you work. We can borrow an idea from software development here. In coding, the main branch is the single source of truth. It's the official version. You need the exact same thing for your processes, a publicly defined, standard way that things get done. Now, this isn't about being rigid. It's just about having a clear, functional baseline that everyone can see and rely on. But look, a definition is totally useless if it just lives in a forgotten document somewhere. You have to anchor it into daily routines. There's a famous story about when Mark Zuckerberg decided Facebook absolutely had to become mobile first. He didn't just send a memo. He simply announced that he would no longer attend any meeting or review any prototype unless it was on a mobile device. He anchored that massive strategic change to his own calendar, which forced the entire organization to pivot with him. And you don't have to be a CEO to create an anchor. Let's say you want teams to be more goal-oriented. Easy, just add a required goals section to all your budget request templates. Want leadership to actually care more about user feedback? Schedule recurring reviews that they have to attend. The whole key here is to embed the behavior you want into the systems people are already using. You want to make it easier to do things the right way than the wrong way. Okay, now before you run off to create a rule and a process for absolutely everything, there is a crucial final point to make. The goal here isn't to eliminate disorder completely. Take a look at this chart. You've got performance on the vertical axis and entropy going from total order to total chaos on the horizontal axis. Now, notice something interesting. Peak performance isn't way over on the far left in that state of perfect, rigid order. And why is that? It's because too much order creates rigidity. It completely stifles creativity and makes it impossible to adapt. But as we've already seen, too much disorder just leads to pure dysfunction. The real art of leadership, the real challenge, is finding that sweet spot right there in the middle, that optimal balance that maximizes your team's performance. So remember this, organizational entropy is a real, natural force, but it is not your destiny. You absolutely can manage it with focused energy. So the real question to leave you with is this: where does your organization sit on this curve right now? And what's one small anchor you could create this week to move it just a little bit closer to its peak?